shred of credible evidence and has been debunked a million times. In Filipino, we refer to this as sirang plaka. Paulit-ulit, wala namang naniniwala sa kanila. The Chinese Coast Guard referred to its actions at sea as, and I quote, reasonable, legal, and professional. They also claimed that a Philippine Coast Guard vessel, and I quote, deliberately crashed into the normal law enforcement of the Chinese Coast Guard boat 21555 in an unprofessional and dangerous way, resulting in a slight scratch, and the responsibility was completely on the Philippines. End of quote. This is standard Chinese disinformation and fake news. As we can see from footage of the incidents yesterday, coming from third-party and independent members of the domestic and international media, including footages which will be shared here today by the Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard. The Chinese Coast Guard conducted provocative, unilateral, illegal, and unprofessional acts. The Coast Guard uniform we proudly wear. We hold the Chinese Coast Guard responsible for their actions. The Chinese Coast Guard further claims that the Philippines is, and I quote, untrustworthy, stirring up trouble and maliciously inciting hype. Let me ask them this question. Who is executing the blocking and dangerous maneuvers? Who is deploying water cannons against unarmed ships? Is hurting or causing injury to Filipino personnel professional and legitimate? Who is deliberately blocking our ships in waters of the Philippines, exercises sovereign rights and jurisdiction under international law? Is it the Philippines? No, it is China. It is a China that is deliberately stirring up trouble and maliciously inciting hype, and not the Philippines. We wish to remind the Chinese Coast Guard that when it points a finger at others, there are 3 other fingers pointing back at them. I remember an old proverb that states, before you start pointing fingers, make sure your hands are clean. The Philippines, for its part, continues to act peacefully and responsibly, consistent with international law, particularly UNCLOS and the legally binding 2016 arbitral award. Peace and stability cannot be achieved without due regard for the legitimate, well-established, and legally settled rights of others. If the hope of China is to weaken the Philippine resolve, they will be sorely disappointed, because we will never be deterred from exercising our legal rights over our maritime zones, including Ayungin Shoal, which forms part of our EEZ and continental shelf. During the Chinese New Year last month, China said that the Philippines should work with China to steer the right course and bring back bilateral relations on the right track as soon as possible. It also called on the Philippines to meet China halfway and manage maritime disputes properly through dialogue and consultation. In response, we also share China's aspirations, but we demand that they match their words with actions. In order to manage the maritime disputes properly, they must first stop their harassment and bullying of legitimate Philippine operations. That is the primary reason for the increase of tensions in the West Philippine Sea. They must stop hurting our Filipino personnel who are just doing their jobs in accordance with international law, without which their call for resolving the maritime differences properly will amount to nothing but empty words and unfulfilled promises. The South China Sea is wide enough for both our nations to coexist as we have done for centuries. as President Ferdinand Marcos has said, and I quote, relations with China is mutual respect, cooperation, and unity. Maraming salamat.
Next, Senator. And open stage for the spokesperson of the Philippine Navy. Morning, Representative.
My presentation is only part of the Navy presentation. I just come in with you.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. For the Armed Forces of the Philippines, for our Chief of Staff. Today I will be presenting the situation update on the rotational resolution mission at the Union Shoal from 04 to 06 March of 2020. So this is the statement of the AFP. From the words of our Chief of Staff, General Romeo S. Brown Jr., the Armed Forces of the Philippines strongly condemns the China Coast Guards and the Chinese maritime militia's latest excessive and unlawful actions against Philippine vessels conducting our routine, rotation, and resupplying of troops in BRP Sierra Madre at a Union Shoal on March 5. We call on the China Coast Guard to act with prudence and be responsible in their actions to prevent miscalculations and accidents that will endanger our people's lives. The AFP commits to sustain the military forces deployed in the West Philippine Sea and maintaining the Philippine presence in our exclusive economic zone. We'd like to give you the details in terms of the war mission. For our primary vessels, we have Onaiza May 1, Onaiza May 4, and for our supporting vessels, we have the BRP Gregorio del Pilar, PS-15, BRP Manuel Alcaraz, PS-16, BRP Sindangan, MRRB 4407, and BRP Cabra, MRRB 4409. In terms of the Chinese monitored vessels, we have from the POE Navy 3 vessels with bow number 648, 172, and 530 respectively. From the Chinese Coast Guard, we have monitors 5, 5201, 3305, 21555, 21556, and 21551. And for the Chinese maritime militia or the Chinese fishing vessels, we have monitor 18. We would like to take note that the commander of West Front was actually on board during the dereliction. For in terms of the significant events of the incidents during the Royal Mission at LS-57 in a mutual from the period 4 to 6 March 2020. From on 04 March 2024 on Monday, at 04:10, the US-1 and UN-4 departed from the station. And on 05 March of 2024 Tuesday, at 03:26, there were several radio challenges from the Chinese Coast Guard that occurred. On 05:05, the response of our FMRM from DRT Cabra was in China Coast Guard. This is PSG vessel DRT Cabra 4409 conducting routine maritime patrol within the Philippine exclusive economic zone. We are proceeding to our planned route. Stay clear to our passage in accordance to collision regulations. And at 5:48, same day, the UN-4 was blocked by 4 CCGs and 3 Chinese fishing vessels accordingly. On 05 March still, at 8:15, Chinese Coast Guard 5201, Chinese Coast Guard 21551, they performed water cannon on ZM4 and 4 personnel from our end, including minor injuries. At 8:23, the UN-1 successfully crossed the enemy entrance. And at 8:40, NRRV 4.07 provided medical assistance to the injured personnel as stated. At 8:42, the UN-1 safely arrived and moved at starboard side of LS-57. At 9:36 Naval, UN-4 and DRT Sandagan, MRRV 4407, in convoy, departed towards Puerto Princesa City in Palawan. And at 10:56, UN-1 departed LS-57 and rode back to Palawan. These are photos of the scene in the area. Actual photos during the blocking and the dangerous maneuver executed by multiple Chinese vessels, including 2 Chinese Coast Guards, DM 21551 and DM 3305 towards UN-4. So now, how we have encircled our vessel. This is another photo. The actual photos during the blocking and dangerous maneuver executed by multiple Chinese vessels, including 2 CCGs, DM 21551 and DM 3305 towards UN-4. So as you can see, the maneuvers is circling our vessel for you. This is also the actual photo of the water cannon incident. The actual photos of 2 Chinese Coast Guard DN 5201 and DN 21551, which doused their water cannon and near collision against UN-4. This is another photo of a 1984 in the middle and a Philippine Coast Guard vessel at the right. As they were being blocked, the Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia vessels during its rotation and repositioning mission to BRT Sierra Madre LS-57 at the usual on March 5. This is the actual photo of 2 Chinese Coast Guards DN 5201 and DN 21551 who doused their water cannon on near collision against UN-4. So nakita po natin mas sobrang lapit na po ito. So you can just imagine how much pressure was really given to our vessel. A Chinese Coast Guard vessel deployed at around 8 p.m. and its water cannon on the 904 during its rotation and repositioning mission to BRT Sierra Madre. This is a video which shows our personnel which were on board around the main 4. When the Chinese Coast Guard vessel deployed its water cannon at around 8:15 a.m. during the rotation and positioning. So dito po natin makikita how our windshield goes to the pressure of the water cannon. So makita niyo po, pumasok po yung water and it's also running CCTV cameras inside our vessel. This is the photo that shows the extent of the damage. So this is the broken glass as shown. Across the Chinese coastal vessels water cannon towards landing 4 during the said mission. Again, the photos show that it's not just our windshield that is damaged, there are also certain damages that will be caused by the vessel. The sustained damage of Unit 4 due to the water pressure exerted by the water cannon from CCG 21551 and CCG 5201. So dalawa po yun na sabay po yung water cannon sa ating vessel. This is another video that shows personnel on board Condemning Chinese when a Chinese coastal vessel deployed its water cannon at around 8:50 p.m. So ito po makikita niyo po how much pressure was really incurred by our vessel. So we go very close range na po ito. And this is another video that shows how two Chinese coastal vessels simultaneously sprayed water cannon to a 911 tour at around 8:15 a.m. So ito po, dalawa na po ito mga ongoing events. So kita niyo po, 911 tour in the middle, almost being blocked by the water from both ends. So that's about it for the updates in terms of the armed forces of the Philippines. Thanks.
Next will be the presentation of the spokesperson of the Philippine Coast Guard, Mr. Naval J.P.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. I would like to apologize dahil nasira po ang kuryente namin. Sa dinami-dami ng panahon, ngayon pa talaga. Kaya po mainit tayo ngayon. Nag-volunteer pa naman ako na ako ang mag-host ng ating press conference. And ganito ako naging kapag-stop niya. Again, I would like to thank our media friends for attending this press conference. To proceed with my presentation, I would like to highlight the fact that the role of the Philippine Coast Guard in this supply mission is only to support the operation of the armed forces of the Philippines. The role and mission is a mission for the armed forces of the Philippines. In short, it's a military operation. Our role is only to support those supply boats that they're using to conduct the supply operation. On the part of the Philippine Coast Guard, we deployed two Coast Guard vessels, 44-meter, BRP Simbangan, MRB 4407, BRP Cabra, MRB 4409, and then there's supply boats that they are tasked to escort, Liza Bay 1 and Liza Bay 4. Just at least to give you an idea of the operational area of this supply operation. The Philippine Coast Guard vessels came from Bulinian Port. That's Point C. That's the southernmost part of Palau. And then the supply boats, it came from Ulugan Bay. So the concept of operation is that the Philippine Coast Guard vessel and Liza Bay will rendezvous at Point B, which is Sabina Shoal. From Sabina Shoal, with a total distance of around 40 nautical miles, we're going to sail, going west to Ayungin Shore. The Philippine Coast Guard vessels departed last March 4, 12:40 p.m., hoping that the following day we can be able to have to rendezvous the Eliza May in Sabina Shoal. On our way going to Sabina Shoal, the Philippine Coast Guard vessel was able to monitor the presence of a PLA Navy helicopter with the tail number 36. It is important for us to note that this helicopter are also those helicopters that we see in Bahong Dimasinloc whenever we patrol that area. So we know for a fact that this is a PLA Navy helicopter. The Philippine Coast Guard vessels and resupply boats arrived at Union Shoal around 2 a.m. and then slowly we went to sail moving towards Union Shoal. As early as 3 a.m., unfortunately we don't have photos and images to show you, but as early as 3 a.m., the Chinese Coast Guard vessels started shadowing the entire supply contingent. And by 5:55, is the only photo that we have during that time, wherein the Chinese Coast Guard vessel 21551 and the Chinese Maritime Militia supported each other to prevent Onaisa May 4 from advancing, moving towards Union Shoal. At 5:40 in the morning, we also monitored another Chinese Coast Guard vessels, Chinese Coast Guard vessel 3305 and 2155. They are shadowing MRV 4409 from a certain distance. Sorry. At 6:05 in the morning, at a distance of 13 nautical miles east of Union Shoal, China Coast Guard vessel 3305 blocked MRV 4409 at a distance of only 100 yards. So basically, just like the way that how they have been doing in the past, they're going to block our pathway. They're going to stop all their engines and appear that they're just staying there so that there's a possibility that for the Philippine Coast Guard to collide towards their vessel. And right after this, a few hours after this, we'll be having a collision with another Chinese Coast Guard vessel. At 6:05 in the morning, 3 Chinese Maritime Militia vessels and Chinese Coast Guard vessel 21556 blocked and shadowed Onaisa May 1. You can see how many Chinese Maritime Militias are being deployed for them to prevent the Philippine government in advancing, moving towards Union Shoal. This is another video showing Chinese Maritime Militia vessel blocking MRV 4409. And also disregarding bulwarks because this vessel did not consider the fact that she's actually closing the bow of MRV 4409. At 6:19 in the morning, Chinese Coast Guard vessel conducted close maneuver towards MRV 4409 at a distance of only less than 50 yards. You can just imagine how big this Coast Guard vessel is, and doing such maneuver can actually endanger the safety of the MRV 4409. just to support the images that were shown a while ago by Ma'am Padilla, that the Onaisa Bay were also shadowed by Chinese maritime militia and the Chinese Coast Guard vessel. It goes to show that it's not just the Philippine Coast Guard that they are blocking, but even the supply boats to prevent us from carrying out a successful supply operation. At 6:32 in the morning, that's what we have been warning the Chinese Coast Guard for so many months already, that they need to abide the provisions of the collision regulation. If not, there is a high possibility that collision incident might happen. And in this particular incident, because we have always ensured the seamanship skills of our commanding officer in deploying our vessels in Palawan, particularly in carrying out the supply operations, that he has prevented the impact of collision towards the Chinese Coast Guard 21555. Here's another video taken from the vessel. You can see the Philippine Coast Guard personnel are really doing so much effort to prevent the collision towards the vessel. And the Chinese Coast Guard personnel are just standing there and taking video. So it means perhaps that it was deliberate on their part. They don't really care whether there would be a collision. But for the Philippine government, they are preventing such collision from happening. Around 7 in the morning, MRV 4409 was already separated from Onaisa Bay. You know, for every Coast Guard vessel, our concept of operation is that one Coast Guard will escort one Onaisa Bay. And based on our experience for the past so many months already, the concept of operation for the Chinese Coast Guard is for them to separate the Philippine Coast Guard vessel from the supply. In this particular photo, you can see how they can how they corral MRV 4409 for them to separate it from Onaisa Bay 1. It is worth mentioning that in this time, 750, the Chinese Coast Guard vessel was also successful in separating Onaisa Bay 4 from the escort vessel of Onaisa Bay. The escort vessel of Onaisa Bay is MRV 4407. You can see from this photo that the Chinese maritime forces have become successful in separating it, deploying as many as 2 Chinese Coast Guard vessels and 4 Chinese maritime militia for them to separate these 2 boats. As a result of that, Onaisa Bay, when due to her seamanship skills as well, she was able to get out of the situation of being trapped by these Chinese Coast Guard vessels. So from there, she managed to get out of being trapped and decided to sail on her way proceeding to Ayungin shore. This video is very important for us to know because right after she was separated from Onaisa Bay, that's the time that she was already completely separated by this Chinese maritime militia, even doing dangerous maneuver to move further to Onaisa Bay from the Philippine Coast Guard vessel. And right after this, the escort vessel of Onaisa Bay, MRV 4407, is still wanting to get out of being corralled and trapped by this Chinese Coast Guard vessel. But it was very difficult for MRV 4407. That's why they were separated. Since they were separated, the Philippine Coast Guard is no longer there to ensure the security and safety of Unaysa May Port. That's why she has to be subject to water cannoning of these two Chinese Coast Guard vessels. Because most of the time, our media friends would always ask, if the Philippine Coast Guard vessel has the duty to escort the Unaysa May, where is the Philippine Coast Guard vessel during this time? That's why I showed the 3 previous slides to show that the MRV 4407 was completely corralled and she's no longer have the ability to maneuver to support Unaysa May. And the water cannoning of 21551 and other Chinese Coast Guard did not stop until 8:50. And besides from the water cannoning, Chinese Coast Guard also did dangerous maneuver that almost had a collision with this Unaysa May. As a result of the water cannoning, which was already narrated by the AFP spokesperson, the Philippine Coast Guard vessels MRV 4407 received a radio call from Unaysa May Port that 4 of the crew have been injured. That's why the Philippine Coast Guard launched a rigid hull inflatable boat to provide medical assistance to those injured personnel. Around 7:52 in the morning, Unaysa May 1 was the only successful resupply boat that entered the lagoon of Unaysa Division. It is also worth mentioning that despite of the damage that Unaysa May has sustained because of the water cannoning and the near collision, and they know for a fact that the Unaysa May have also injured personnel on board, the Chinese Coast Guard still never hesitated to launch their own rigid hull inflatable boat or their patrol boat coming from 21551 and circle around Unaysa May Port, trying to document as if we are the ones doing illegal activities in our own exclusive economic zone. Around 9:56 in the morning, Unaysa May 4 has decided to abort the mission proceeding by Union Show, but to proceed back to Ulugan Bay, and it was escorted by DRPC now. At 12:50 in the afternoon, Unaysa May 1 already exited the Union Show, and as you can see from the photo, she was still being shadowed by Chinese maritime militia vessels. At 7:30 in the morning of 6, I think that's most. But these are the Chinese Coast Guard vessels that actively blocked, conducted dangerous maneuver and dangerous tactics as we carry out these resupply operations in Indonesia. Chinese Coast Guard vessel 5305, 5201, and the 2150 series 21551, 21555, and 21556. These are also the notorious and active Chinese maritime militia that actively supported the blocking and dangerous maneuver of the Chinese Coast Guard vessels. On the part of the Philippine Coast Guard, we monitored PLA Navy Vessel 530, PLA Navy Vessel 164, and the PLA Navy helicopter with tail number 36. All in all, the Chinese maritime militia vessels that we physically monitored, there were 12 of them, and 6 were monitored via AIS, and 5 Chinese Coast Guard vessels, and 3 People's Liberation Army Navy, and the TCG heli. That ends my briefing, and maraming salamat.
Thank you, Colonel Cariella. Next, we have the Ambassador. President Laza, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone in this hot afternoon. Yesterday, another incident again occurred within the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, more particularly in Ayungin Shoal. Chinese actions resulted in collision between a Philippine Coast Guard ship and a Chinese Coast Guard ship. The irresponsible use of water cannons damaged a Philippine supply vessel and caused minor injuries among some of the Philippine crew that was doing a routine rotation and resupply mission to the RP Sierra Madre. The Philippine Embassy in Beijing has demarched their counterparts in the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs yesterday. The department also lodged another diplomatic protest against the Chinese side by summoning the Chinese embassy also yesterday afternoon. Ayungin Shoal is part of Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone and continental shelf. The Philippines has sovereign rights and jurisdiction over it. As a low-tide elevation, Ayungin Shoal can neither be the subject of sovereignty claim nor is it capable of appropriation under international law. The Philippines' resupply missions to the RP Sierra Madre are part of routine operations in line with domestic and international law. This lawful activity is well within the exercise of Philippine rights within our EEZ. We have not added anything to our normal or routine law missions. Our conduct over our EEZ remains the same. The Philippines has made sincere efforts to implement numerous instructions to lessen tensions and have our foreign ministers and foreign ministries hold discussions. China, however, has made references to supposed agreements or arrangements out of these discussions. The Philippines has not entered into any agreement. I repeat, the Philippines has not entered into any agreement abandoning its sovereign rights and jurisdiction over its EEZ and continental shelf, including in the vicinity of the Ayungin Shoal. China's unlawful exercise of maritime law enforcement powers, interference with Philippine rotation and resupply missions, or any other activity that infringes upon Philippine sovereign rights and jurisdiction in the Ayungin Shoal are violations of international law, particularly the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. We continue to call on China to cease and desist promptly undertaking actions that violate Philippine sovereignty, sovereign rights and jurisdiction in the West Philippine Sea, and undermine the mutual trust and confidence that should underpin bilateral relations. We thank the international community for their continued expression of support to the Philippines and the defense of the international order based on international law. The Department of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of the Philippines remains committed to pursue its standard of protecting and upholding the Philippine legal maritime entitlements in the West Philippine Sea. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Madam. That closes all the presentation from our resource persons. At this moment, we will be opening the floor for questions from our dear friends. Once again, I would like to remind everyone that we will only one question per media agency. We have here from our business.
Good afternoon, Ambassador. The State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller made a statement overnight that the Philippines and the US are talking and discussing what he described as provocative actions outside the what were discussed, and the discussions include invoking the Legal Defense Treaty because the statement of the past statements of the State Department has been quite clear that Article 4 of the FDP includes an attack that sense to the Coast Guard would activate such provision?
On the first question, I do not have at this moment a readout of what was discussed, but suffice it to say, there's continuing and ongoing discussion and consultation between the U.S. and the Philippines on a number of areas of cooperation, including defense cooperation. So, in terms of specific readout, I do not have it at this moment. In terms of the second question, in terms of the NBT, I refer to our embassy representative to respond.
The invocation of the Mutual Defense Treaty is subject to consultations between the Philippines and the United States. And given that it is subject to high-level consultations, we cannot, the National Task Force as Philippines, cannot make any comment as of this time.
What's the scope of the consultations, and is there, or what are the ways forward that you are looking at in terms of more concrete support perhaps on the part of the U.S. based on the incident that happened in the U.S. Philippines?
I'll get back to you on your question as soon as I get more information.
Up next, we have from AFP News.
In reference to the statement by the State Department mentioned by my colleague, it refers to 4 injured service personnel. I wanted to know, and the military spokeswoman referred to these 4 injured people as personnel from our side. I wanted to know from which service are they alien?
Yes, our operations there under Lord, the rotational resupply is a military operations, our Coast Guard said. We are conducting routine morale and welfare activities. So our troops are stationed in unusual, so we have to give them permissions. And thus, our personnel will be part of the crew of the vessels that were involved.
Meaning our military, Philippine military.
Yes, Philippine. As to the composition of the cruiser, we cannot divulge the for operational.
One follow-up question.
As a follow-up to that, since we have had this resupply missions, we've had them forever, like forever, but we're not publicizing them before because we had a different strategy. Could you tell us how many service personnel have become casualties of this Chinese?
Some of them it's the first time that we have minor injuries that were reported during these missions. But as I said, we cannot divulge how many are in composition of everything.
There was a laser attack.
Yes, but there was no intending, like, these ones are minor injuries, the ones were temporary blindness.
So when we say 6 injured since then?
It depends on the answer. It wasn't too clear as this is a lasting impact on this.
I think the same here from that.
Yes, I want to just comment that was the spokesperson of the Philippine Navy in terms of issues regarding the West Philippine Sea.
Yes, your question was on the 4 Navy reports of the injury, or the minor injuries. So far, these are the only casualties or injuries we have incurred in all our missions in the West Philippine Sea for the Philippine Navy. And I believe it was within that process. Though the reason for the incident was on the Coast Guard ship, I believe it's after temporary blindness.
Next, we have NGA News. Again, sir, 1 question and 1 follow-up question.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and Ambassador. Based on the discussions, we know that while all of these very aggressive maneuvers by the Chinese were ongoing, sir, ginawa tayong Navy ships na naka-standby sa tabi. Anong threshold? Kailan sila makikialam? Kailan sila sasabihin nila ang mga kapwa Pilipino na dinidefend in the future? So, is there a protocol in place? Because people might be asking, andun yung mga kapwa-parting ba, but they don't want to do it, sir?
Yes, there are protocols in place before the rules of engagement. This governs the actions of the Navy and the armed forces, depending on the situation as they escalate. The Commander of Western Command was employed in 1984. He was there to supervise all of this tactical action. It could have strategic implications. So when the stakes are high, our senior commanders have a hands-on approach to naval and military operations. We had the call when to bring in the gray ship and the navy ships.
At that point, we find that, sir.
Yes, because he will come in. So I surmise that it was his call as being the commander on the ground.
Sorry, point two,
Sorry, sir, we have to move on to the next item. We have from 18.
For Ambassador Dasa, on last February 17, representatives of China and the Philippines met in Shanghai and forged an understanding or an agreement to lower tensions and some called it to de-escalate. In light of what happened yesterday, is this understanding or agreement still on the table? And if it's still on the table, what's the rationale for holding on to a policy or agreement that continues to result in, damages to Philippine ships and injuries to Filipino crew members?
I would like to repeat, relative to both the Shanghai and others, and as it was mentioned that there are agreements. The Philippines is not entered into any agreement that will relinquish or abandon our sovereign rights and jurisdiction over EEZ and continental shelf, including Philippine shoal. There's also no temporary special arrangement existing between the Philippines and China with regard to Philippine shoal. So this narrative keeps on repeated that we made promises and that we've broken promises to get arrangements and that we actually are not following the agreements. So we're saying clearly that we have not entered into any agreement that will abandon our sovereign rights and jurisdiction with ICC. But what they need to mention though is after the Shanghai, during the Shanghai meeting of January 17, clearly the two parties agreed that we have to only deal with incidents in the South China Sea and that we have to go through this with diplomacy. Second, that also that there should be efforts on both parts, from both sides, to reduce tensions in the area. And that we believe that continuous dialogue is important to keep peace and stability at the sea. And if you note in a press statement that was released after, we made mention that we were looking into upgrading the communication mechanism between the two sides. So if on the just peace force alone, I don't think the Philippines has actually been in this. They continue to pursue diplomacy and dialogue, and in terms of setting all efforts necessary to reduce tension in the South China Sea. So in terms of your latter question, I think it becomes more important, at least from our perspective, to continue to talk and dialogue with them, and to see where we can meet and actually have common grounds. But the President has always been very clear. Relative to our territory, we will not actually relinquish or abandon our territory. Not one inch is actually relatedly quoted. So this is something that we are pursuing. But at the same time, we will not also stop in terms of continuous dialogue, because what other options would be available from the department's perspective?
Commodore Trinidad, Admiral Carlos, a senior Navy official, was in UN Congo, and that was hit, and then it was damaged, and there were 4 injuries. Can you tell us, why is it necessary for a senior Navy official to be in that ship, and how did that, what happened affect the mindset of the military? And additionally, for the first time now, we are hearing that Philippine Navy ships were in the area, and PLA Navy ships were also there. What's the implication of this to possible, miscalculations when great ships are present in one area of adversarial situation?
Allow me first to state that May 1, 2, 3, and 4 are Navy contracted ships. In running the operation, the supply, we have a command and control team on the bridge of May. The bridge is the center of all activity when the ship is underway. The commander of Western Command was on the bridge of May 4. He was there when the windshield was shattered. He did not incur any injury. He was there to ensure that this tactical action will not spiral out of control, and it may have strategic implications. I mentioned earlier that when the stakes are high, it is a naval and a military practice for our commanders to lead from the front. Not only are you increasing the morale of the men, but you would like to be assured that in case of any untoward incident, it will not spiral out of control.
Let me just add, Jim, to our answer to this question. Both sides have mentioned that they want to de-escalate tensions. Unfortunately, we were also surprised on what happened there in a mutual yesterday, because we thought that we were turning the page already. So our call really is for the Chinese government to match their words with actions. Because they say they want to meet us halfway, they say they want a win-win solution, they say they want to steer a new course for Philippine and Chinese bilateral relations and resolve this matter of maritime issues in a peaceful manner. But we need to see these words translated into actions on the ground. But this, of course, will not stop the Philippines from continuing engaging with China. As the President has said repeatedly, even in the face of aggression and provocation, we'll have to engage and continue to talk to the PRC. So we are not closing our doors. Our desire is to keep engaging with them, but if China desires some improvement or progress in resolving this maritime dispute in a peaceful and orderly manner, we demand that they match their words with their actions.
Sir, definitely. Sir, we are already on our second year of implementing the Assertive Transparency Initiative, which we've seen has garnered the support of and the validation from the international community. But is this strategy, our transparency initiative strategy, enough when we put it against the more physical and aggressive tactics by China as seen in the recent mission?
Well, first of all, we don't call it assertive transparency. As what with Agent Malaya's capability. We don't have to be very assertive for us to be transparent. What we're doing is that we just have a measured transparency. Now, if your question is, are we effective in attaining our objectives with the transparency strategy that we did launch since last year? I think for us to respond to that question, we have to look at what are the objectives of the transparency strategy. I've been mentioning this a lot of times. The first one is for us to create awareness in the Philippines. Right now, with the current survey result,
They were saying that more than 70% now supports the approach of the Philippine government in KSTPC. Second objective of the transparency strategy is to rally support from the international community. We can know for a fact that more countries now are engaging more countries, criticizing, condemning provocative actions of China, and also expressing their commitment to support the modernization of the armed forces of the Philippines, to deepening the defense cooperation that we have. So, if we're going to measure it, how effective we are now, I think we have already gained the objective achieve the objectives and accomplish it well. But if we're going to ask how the transparency strategy affect the behavior of China, I think that is not for us to answer. Definitely, nobody would really say that whatever strategy you're going to carry out, whether diplomatic, whether you talk to them or whatever, and choose to abide with international law and ensure the status quo and maintain the global order that we are enjoying.
Yes, also, sometimes the issue is a complex and challenging issue, and there's no one fix. You have a strategy that you understand it has to be a collection of efforts to address it across different fronts, whether it be in terms of diplomacy, public diplomacy, law enforcement, regulation. There has to be a collective effort on the part of the country. One point. The second point that I'd like to stress is sometimes it's not just an issue that concerns the Philippines. It is also an issue that concerns our neighbors and the entire world. When countries undermine the rules-based international believe in the rules-based international order to act, the expose and the host is used. And to call back all countries to the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, as well as the 2016 Arbitral Tribunal Award, that actually is a legal and binding award, that actually also, I've already said, that China's mine line has no legal basis. China claims the entire South China Sea, including parts of the high seas as Chinese waters. This actually overturns centuries of development of international law culminating in 1982 UNCLOS, the universal and unified character to which countries are actually accepted by the international community. So we, on our part, should actually seek the support of like-minded countries that believe that the rules-based international law is something that we all should apply, and that not one country should actually determine what law would apply in a particular region, and not one country's interpretation of that law should apply to all, and to those countries in the region. So I think we should also widen our perspective. Yes, it concerns us, but we should also say that it does not just concern the Philippines. It concerns other countries because it's already a question of whether we're observing the rules-based international law.
Next, we have PPP for to open my question in the AFP can answer regarding the post the US as mobile LCS-26. Do they have any role on the recent Doran mission? Kasi nakita daw po yung US as Navy ship last Monday near the vicinity of Sabina Shore.
We have to take into consideration that this happened in the Philippines territory, EEZ. So they are actually, these are open waters. So they are exercising their right towards freedom of navigation. So their presence there could mean that they were there for any reason that deemed necessary for them.
Next, we have IEC News.
Good afternoon, good officials. Earl Thomas, ITC News 13. Yung sa akin lang po, kailan I covered former Justice of Supreme Court Antonio Carter, nasabi niya na ang China nga daw ay nagkakaroon ng AR war, where they try to win the West Philippine Sea without firing a single bullet by misinformation and disinformation. And evidently po, under the published in the Foreign Ministry's spokesperson site ng China, they call Philippines as the one who was defined or bordered by treaties. And sinabi niyo po nila, on their word, the Philippines arbitrarily went beyond its territorial scope to set up the so-called Calayan Island Group, which is violated China's territorial sovereignty. This is illegal, null, and void. Ano po reaction natin sa pilit nilang pagsasabing null and void ng ating 2016 claim na nalulun tayo sa sariling territory?
China has a lot of narratives, and we really have to be very careful. Because if we mount it and we give them the platform to actually present their narratives, more people will believe in it. And that's the reason why the government is earnestly trying to present its position. And that's the reason why the National Task Force has actually come and trying to present the perspective relative to what happens in the South China Sea. I'll give you one narrative. They keep on debunking the award, the Article of Award. And they say that the Article of Award is supposed to, because their claim is based on historic rights. They keep on saying that they own the waters because of historic rights. But the award is already debunked that the claim based on historic rights is both illegal and void. They can say because they did not participate and because of that, then there's no basis in terms of the award. So clearly, they were given the opportunity, and the Article of Award also made mention that they, in any dispute, Annex 2 provides that if one party to the dispute does not appear before the Article of Award or appears to defend its case, the other party may request the to continue the proceedings and make its award, which is what the Philippines did. The absence of a party or failure of a party to defend its case shall not constitute a part of the proceedings, which is exactly what happened. Before making its award, the Arbitrator Tribunal became satisfied that it had jurisdiction over the dispute and that the claim is well founded in fact and law. And then they say that, of course, they own the entire area, that the fishing activities by Chinese fishing boats and waters, what they're doing in terms of regulation and enforcement are legitimate and lawful and beyond control. But we're saying that would be legitimate if they were in the EEZ. But they're not in the EEZ. They're a big distance away from the EEZ. There are in our EEZ. And because of that, it is us who will determine what we will do in our EEZ, is it not? So there are many narratives that come out, and it's important for all of us in the Philippines, from government to the private sector and to the media, to actually question the narratives that are being posted on us in ways and actually repeated in the hope that it will garner support.
One follow-up question, sir.
Following that up po, in the words of former Justice Carter, irrelevance na ako sa disinformation na pilit na ginagamit ng China against us. Sinabi nila, the only choice we have the support of the world because we have the arbitral war. If we can convince our allies to lobby for us, specifically in UN, China should be condemned from statement namin po natin.
We are working very hard. We are working very hard to seek the support of the international community. Kanina it was asked, is the transparency policy just our single strategy in resolving this problem? No, it's not. Because the transparency policy is just one aspect of what we do. And we thank the international community, particularly the countries that have spoken in favor of the Philippines. But there are other countries that we also need to talk to and seek their support. And that is precisely what government is doing right now. Through the transparency policy, we are showing to the world what's happening in the West Philippine Sea, and we are showing to the entire world that China does not respect international law, and its non-respect to international law poses a problem for all nations in the world. because international law is the great equalizer. So yes, in answer to your question, as mentioned by Justice Carpio, it is important for the Philippines to keep on engaging other nations so we can get more nations to support us in our fight for the West Philippines.
Dr. National from the Philippine Empire. Really know what's the President Marcos' reaction to this latest closing incident because we haven't heard from him since yesterday, but they were more for the topic in talk to one of the Australian broadcaster and we stayed to the South China Sea to give him an outright conflict saying that I quote, the potential for our conflict is much higher now than because of law.
The National Security Advisor is with the President right now in Australia, and since he's there, he has regularly updated the President of everything that's happening in the West Philippines. So there is media together with the President in Melbourne, and I think they would have an opportunity to ask the President directly on what his reaction is to this incident. We cannot speak for the President, but I think the media will have that opportunity, especially those who are part of the Malacanang Press Stories in Australia, to ask that President directly to him. But let me assure everyone that the President has been apprised by the NSA personally on what is happening and what has happened in the West Philippines.
Next, we have an inquirer, Garnet.
Dr. Gusto ko finish na question basa ng data yung PNP Malaya. We understand that the NPT is philosophical consultation, but maybe after the possible invitation of the NPT is not being discussed between Manila and Washington after this incident.
I may just refer to my previous statement on the matter. The invocation of the Mutual Defense Treaty is a serious matter that requires consultations between both parties. And given that this is something that is discussed on higher levels, we cannot comment at this time.
Sorry, sir. Sorry to correct, but can you say that it is not yet clear because of previous incidents? He said that the NPT could not be yet, but what's different this time?
I can refer to my previous answer. This is a very sensitive matter, and I think this matter is better addressed by higher authorities. Suffice it to say that consultations are being conducted between the Philippines and the United States over this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please, we have from Global News.
While 1994 was agency and also by state, another main conflict was the private and global science. So this and how do you analyze the reason why United States
We have from Government Legacy.
The Philippine Navy, Naval Forces West and Western Command, and for that matter, the entire armed forces for legal military operations, they always have alternate plans. The Resume 1 and the Resume 4 were both there to repetition of the naval troops. Either one of them that could have accomplished the mission would already be a mission accomplishment for us. In this case, it was the Resume 1 that was able to reach LT 57. So we will say that the recommissioning of the rotation troops was a successful mission. As to any analysis, we guess to this group's mind why they were not yet the water cannon. I would like to add to the response of Liberty that the further question is why Resume 1 was not water cannon and Resume 4 was the only one that was water cannon. Is that the question? So, on our part, for the Philippine Coast Guard, since we were tasked to escort the Resumes
The only main reason is that it's a random thing. Philippine Coast Guard in the was not really selective. We believe that it's not clearly pinpointed by the Chinese that we're going to water cannon to go to 974, and this time we're going to allow 971. With the dangerous maneuver that they're doing and dangerous blocking of the Coast Guard vessels and their supply boats. It just so happened that for this particular operation, it was only to 971 that we're able to outmaneuver the Chinese Coast Guard and the Chinese Maritime Militia. And it is unfortunate that 974 became a target for the Chinese Coast Guard for a water cannon attack.
Do you think that
Yeah, we need to one follow-up question on this.
do you think that Chinese side knew that the Western commander was involved in 994?
I could not speculate on whether they knew he was on board, hence the water cannon attack on the 974. I could not speculate on that.
Again, I would like to amplify my response to your second question, that it is not clearly pinpointed which vessel that they're going to water cannon. It is just a result of the dangerous maneuver and outmaneuvering of the Mexican's.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have from PG Press. At the back. Okay. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Joanna Bayan from GT Press. My first question po addressed to Commander Carriera. Sir, the collisions are getting more and more frequent. Do you think these collisions are deliberate? And do you think it's now the new strategy of China to, destroy the ships of the Philippines so that there will be downtime and there's nothing to, or at least very limit the use of these boats in patrolling the West Philippine Sea?
Well, I don't want to speculate about the strategy of China in countering our supply operation. But here's one thing is certain. For the past so many months, we have been already warning the Chinese Coast Guard that they need to abide with condition regulations and also to adhere to all of these provisions to prevent such accident from happening. And unfortunately, they have been still doing this, doing dangerous maneuver blocking operation, which resulted to this kind of accident. So I don't want to speculate that this is their strategy now to destroy our supply boats, as what they're probably mentioning. So again, we still don't know their specific strategy, whether it is really their plan, or they are just completely doing whatever they're doing since we started the supply operation.
My second question po is addressed to ADG Malaga. Sir, you mentioned po kanina that the Philippines is going to talk to other countries to seek support from other countries that haven't, expressed outright support to the Philippines on the West Philippine Sea issue. What are these countries po, and how would you assess the support of the international community to the Philippines on this issue?
I was just reacting to the comment on Justice Garfield that it's important for the Philippines to secure international support. And I replied that we agree. And it has been the position of the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Philippine government that we should continually work with the international community because we're fighting for essential values, basic values that every country must adhere to. In particular, the primacy of the rules-based international order and the primacy of international law in multilateral relations. So the question about how we gauge the success of the Philippines in securing support, we were so happy to immediately receive yesterday statements of support from so many countries, from Japan, from the United States, from Australia, from Germany, from the United Kingdom. So many countries expressed their support. So I think if we ask where is the Philippines now in securing the support of countries. Yes, we have strong international support, and that is shown by the increasing partnerships we're having with many countries in the world. Japan, Australia, for example, have increased their partnerships with us to the level of strategic partnership, and we are getting more and more statements coming from other countries that they would like this matter resolved in a peaceful manner and that they support the Philippine position.
Thank you. Next we have from NHK Japan.
Thank you for taking my questions. I have simply questions that the Philippines added on some like advanced measurements on this issue. Why I ask this because I remember that last year's December there was almost like the same kind of the case incidents happened, and afterwards that the Philippines has now like considering to add on some like advanced measurements for the next low emissions. But somehow like today I see all the briefings that I didn't see like any like up to date same numbers of the vessels you provided and almost like the same times, almost in the same like tactics. So actually, is this the same? There's no any advanced measurements.
You're asking about any changes or advanced measures applied to this particular mission. Was it one conduct regular reprovision and reprovisioning for our 9 island detachments? It is a normal activity. There were no changes except probably for the present organizer before, which just came from the pair. So it's just a normal activity, no major changes.
I will add to that it's not just this feature that we are doing regular royal operations. All of our features and islands, we do regular royal operations. It's the same the whole time. It's a regular thing for the armed forces of the Philippines.
Next we have Chinese.
Hello, sirs and madams. Thank you, News Agency from Taiwan. I'm wondering because we read about the president said that the Philippines will push back if its sovereign rights is ignored on the West Philippine Sea. And now we are seeing 4 military personnel got minor injuries during the incident. So I don't know if we are discussing some kind of measures or different strategies to further next or following missions so we can change this kind of escalating situation. Thank you.
According to the perspective that the mission that was conducted was a regular rotation and resupply mission. So it's happening all over all of the features and the islands that within our territorial waters. So we are there, the Armed Forces of the Philippines will continue to resupply and conduct morale welfare activities to all of our troops in the different features.
But I'm wondering because this time we got 4 personnel injured and there's a possibility that there might be more personnel got injured in the future. So I don't know if we have some prevent measures or some kind of strategy to prevent this kind of situation happening again.
Those are the operational matters. Of course, everything will be taken into consideration. And we will tweak our operations accordingly. These are items that we cannot be able to discuss. Thank you.
Next we have from NHK Philippines.
Good afternoon, Severina Monte from NHK. Just want to get a soundbite regarding your earlier statement that about these four personnel for interview. Would you say that this was so far the most severe incident that, or the worst things that happened during those missions that have taken place?
Well, if you remember, there was this incident last year involving the Philippine Coast Guard, wherein there were a military grade laser was pointed at the Philippine Coast Guard vessel, which led to the temporary blindness of 2 of our personnel. And now it's this incident that happened yesterday, where there's 4 minor injuries as a result of the glass windshield shattering. That's why there were minor injuries. So if the question is this the most serious? Yes, because now we have minor injuries that has happened to our troops. That is why at the beginning of this press conference, we prefaced our statement by saying that we would like peaceful relations with China. We are prepared to do what is necessary to resolve this territorial dispute. To resolve whatever maritime differences we have in the West Philippine Sea. But China must go beyond words alone. They must back up their words with concrete action, because it is important for both countries to turn the page insofar as our routinary missions to AUB is concerned.
So do you expect the future missions to be like worse than, would continue to worsen, would further escalate? And if ever, what preparations would the government?
Yeah, it's difficult to speculate on what will happen. That is why we wish that this incidents don't happen anymore, and that is why we are asking China, because they have repeatedly said that they want to settle this matter in a peaceful way. They want to steer a different course for Philippine-China relations, and it's critical that their actions match what they say. So we are hopeful that we will be able to resolve these differences in a peaceful manner.
Was there any discussion or recommendation from the NPF, from the task force, for the president, like to visit our troops in those areas that we think?
The National Task Force West Philippines has not yet convened in relation to this incident, because the NSA is in Australia with the president.
Next, we have David Manila-Shingon.
So now China's aggressive actions are worsening, and so do you want any physical support, not verbal, not only verbal support, from your allies such as US, Australia, and Japan regarding exploring?
Even without this incident, there are already discussions with other like-minded navies and like-minded nations, considering that there is a lack of capability in the Philippine Navy when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. So we will have to operate on what just recently transpired for the support from other countries to come in.
I would like to add to that, we also have different MOUs with like-minded nations, and we also hope that these MOUs escalate towards PFAs.
One follow-up. Is it a good idea that while the Philippines is conducting low-rate supply mission, your allies, like-minded countries, are conducting freedom of navigation operation, or sailing, or patrolling?
The RORE missions to Ayungin show, just like any RORE mission conducted by the Philippines, is a Philippine affair. It's conducted by Philippine troops, utilizing Philippine vessels, supported by Philippine assets. But of course, there are always the possibility that we can accept support from other countries. But right now, the position of the Philippines is we conduct these resupply missions purely a Philippine affair. But we are open in the future to receiving whatever support the Philippines deems necessary. But I guess we will just have to cross the bridge when we get there.
At this point, we will be getting from two plastic agencies, including Environment Agency and Naval Philippines.
Good afternoon. Especially for Ambassador Ambassador, nag-check na po ng Thailand yung diplomatic process na inihakit ng Pilipinas in connection doon sa water cannon incident kahapon. We would like to know your take on that kasi ang sabi nila tuloy pa rin nila yung pag-water cannon sa mga tuwa ng Pilipinas doon sa yung so that na tuloy po yung information.
What you're saying is that they're going to continue water cannon that's actually serious. But I don't know, I have not read what you said. But I think importantly, we launched our protest and it's expected that they will also come up with their decision. But the important thing is for us to explain exactly what happened in RTZ and why we think it's significant for us, it's serious enough for us to tell China to please cease and desist in actions that are violative of the international law. That could raise not only property, not only vessels, but also the possible injury in terms of personnel.
Follow-up question. Ano po ba yung diplomatic protest na inahin ng Pilipinas sa China? And is there any other alternative legal remedies na liban po dun sa article na minahawag ng Pilipinas para mag-break sa water cannon?
Okay, in terms of figures, as of end of February, there were about 9 for the year 2024 protests that have actually been issued. But if you count the protests also in terms of the summary, that makes it 10. So in terms of under the president, it's 142 in total since he assumed. Now, yes, protest comes in different forms. Maraming klaseng protesta. Protesta in terms of one, pwede mo tawagan na sabihin na hindi tama yung nagawa mo. Pangalawa, pwede mo sabihin na magsulat ka based on the session not verbal. You can also actually someone who is a public undertaking. So maraming possibility in terms of protest. That's one kind of diplomatic action. A protest is one kind of diplomatic action. But it's not the only diplomatic action that's undertaken by the Philippines. And if you notice, we're actually trying to deepen our relations with like-minded countries. We're also trying to broaden, not only expand in terms of like-minded countries, but deepen with those who are already our friends. That's second. The third is in terms of the regional order. We've actually continued to work with ASEAN so that there will be an early completion with the other conflict. So maraming diplomatic action na nangyari. And for example, what happened in terms of the visit in Australia, the president had witnessed the signing of 3 very important agreements. That's another diplomatic action where we are actually trying to go beyond protest. We're trying to see how we can actually deepen partnership with other countries. And here, in response to your question, many times when we actually engage with other countries, it's not because we're pointing a finger at another country. It's because there are certain needs that the country needs and that we're trying to see how other countries can actually support us in the process.
Next na Naval Philippines.
Hello po, good afternoon. My name po from Naval Philippines. Kaya ko mag-retribute po, may konti clarifications lang po ako about po doon sa ano po yung mga grounds natin para masabi natin dapat at hindi pa dapat umaksyon yung Philippine Navy. Sa pagkakala itong klaseng incident sa Western Pacific, kaya po ngayon, may apat po mga nasaktan. Yun po sa ating issue.
I mentioned earlier the rules of engagement. These were the actions of our operating groups. The call when to escalate is on the commander on the ground. That's why we have the commander response to ensure that things will escalate beyond control. But rest assured that the Philippine Navy and the armed forces are prepared to save life and property, subject to the bounds of the rules of engagement and international law.
Sir, to be specific po, ano po ba talaga yung ating parang pamantayan para malaman kung kailan talaga dapat na pumasok doon? Kasi may mga nasasaktan na po sa ginagawa ko na siya.
Yes, yun naman ay napapaloob sa rules of engagement and when to escalate or de-escalate. And the call is left to the ground commander.
Last question na po on my part.
Rolling with one question. Thank you, ma'am. And at this moment, sir, we are going to close our
Thank you. Thanks, sir. Actually, my question is to Commander Mineta. What kind of injuries were sustained by the president? Because they were described as minor. What exactly are they? And to ADG Malay, you mentioned that consultations are ongoing on that MDB. Are these consultations triggered by what happened yesterday? Or are these part of ongoing consultations between the two?
Please separate minor tax. Minor tax. Minor tax.
Much as I'd like to answer your question, I cannot answer the question due to national security concerns. Suffice it to say that these matters are very sensitive, therefore we would rather not make a comment at this time.
Just a quick comment. Master asks this special symbol the ASEAN, the Australian Special Summit came up with a statement, and the statement read that we encourage all countries to avoid any unilateral actions that endanger peace, security, and stability in the region, particularly in the South China Sea. During the meeting in general, and in the repeated, the president made interventions that raised the incident that happened in Indonesia. How does the Philippines view this kind of statement being incorporated in the statement following the summit?
I don't have the read out yet in terms of the visit. Suffice it to say, and as mentioned earlier, it's safe to assume that the South China Sea issue is exactly something that will be raised. And in terms of the discussion, whether specific incidents were actually discussed in this.
last one question, sir, from AFP News.
Yesterday we summoned the deputy chief of mission of the Chinese embassy. I was wondering why we did not summon the ambassador. Is there any symbolism to be read in there? Do we still recognize him, the ambassador? Have we sent him home? That's why he wasn't there yesterday.
I don't know the whereabouts of the ambassador. I think we should check the embassy relative to the whereabouts and his activities. I think the one important thing is not the deputy chief of mission was in the way he was at the best response to the thing was from the best response to the thing. The important thing is I believe that we protested and that it was received and that it was also echoed in our post engagement. So that I think is important. We didn't let it go, we didn't wait. The incident happened in that day on March 5 and we actually acted on it. So I think that's the way to I'm not in the position to act
Thank you.
I think this is a question that is in everybody's mind. Just to be clear with China, just to be clear with the forces of the AFP and all the actors that are involved in the South China Sea. Can you just generally tell us what is the threshold, what is the red line that China cannot cross so that you would, if they cross it, you would elevate your actions to a higher level response. So China, clearly, what would trigger you, what would trigger the Philippines to take a stronger action, diplomatically or otherwise?
I remain sure and Bago Masinlo completely cleared as red lines. There will be no building or reclamation on Bago Masinlo. There will be no removing of LS-57 from animation. These have been declared by the previous administration that these are red lines for the Philippines, with the armed forces, rather to the Philippine government. On escalation of the ground, the rules of engagement reverts the actions when to come in to save life and property, and limit to the ground commander when to use appropriate rules of engagement.
Quickly related to that, Governor Trinidad, if Philippine forces somehow have to defend themselves and use military action in an unexpected emergency situation, how high is the level of approval and clearance? That will it go up to the President, to the Western Commander, or to General Bronner? In
the framing of the rules of engagement, we have consulted guidance of the President and the Naval Command authorities. The ROE does not infringe upon the right to self-defense or the right to protect life and property.
Thank you.